Most common problem we have in monetization is when you don't match the value of your product to what you're trying to charge. That is the most common problem I see in games or just in general for all businesses, where you think that certain things that you're giving someone has more value or less that value than what they actually have. So, for example, like
Hi guys, my name is Emmanuel and welcome to the Grow Design Podcast. Today I have a very exciting and an amazing guest, and he's actually a product manager. I will allow him to do this introduction definitely, but then just a teaser. And he has been in the game design space for a while now, and he's a beast when it comes to monetization. Hi, Jamel.
Hi, thanks for having me. Yeah, no, as you said, I've been in video games since 2006, and I've been working on monetization for video games probably since 2012 ish. And right now, I'm working at a company where we do monetization for games, and we also do just advertising for entertainment in general, TV shows, movies, all those great things. So excited to talk to you.
Hmm. Yeah, same here too. When you talk about game design, so let me ask you, what's your favorite game?
My favorite,
Definitely you play games.
yeah,
So.
yeah, my favorite game probably would be. There's a couple I'm playing. Smash Brothers. They're the ultimate. Is a very fun game. I like Hearthstone. I've been playing that for since the beta, and I've been playing Marvel Snap since the beta as well. So I like a lot of card games
Oh,
for
do you,
for my games. Mhm.
do you play on console or on mobile? Like, which platform do
So
you play there?
yeah, I primarily play on mobile games just because as my career has expanded, I've had a lot less free time. So usually the only time I have to
Uh,
sit down, I have a wife and dogs, so the only time I sit down is to play on my phone. So all my gaming went there. But when I was younger, it was
uh,
much more console dominated.
yeah, yeah. I thought that so much too. Though I actually, my favorite game is FIFA.
Yeah,
I'm a sport person. I love soccer. So anything that's to do with sports. But then I'm not a good basketballer. But I love soccer. I play FIFA. I play the FUT. Yeah, all about FIFA. Just me and soccer. Yeah, so super excited to really have this conversation with you today. So before we dive right in, so can you give us a little bit about your background in terms of where you've worked and your
yeah,
experience?
absolutely. So as I said, I started in 2006. I worked in a variety of roles in video games. So my first role was at Activision. I was a quality assurance tester. I then worked as a quality assurance tester for a small game uh, publisher. They were also a developer. So I worked in quality assurance. I worked in production coordinating. I worked as a producer. I worked as sound engineer. I worked as a person who led the ADR, the sound recordings. Just a variety of things. So people usually would ask what I do in video games, and I would describe that I don't know how to code, and you wouldn't want me doing art, but the rest of it I'm pretty comfortable doing in video games. So I've worked worked on a variety of speaking of consoles. I've worked on a variety of consoles pretty much since the Nintendo Wii and PlayStation Two. I worked a lot of PC games, web games, and such. And recently, I worked at Disney as a product manager for mobile games, and I would work with the developers and putting advertising into their games, and kind of thinking through a lot of game developers don't think about how monetization in general works inside games, but especially as advertising monetization. So I did that for Disney. I'm also worked at Scopely, which is a relatively big mobile game company. And so I worked there helping game teams with their monetization. I worked at Unity on their ad monetization side, helping a wide variety of games make sure they make as much money as possible in their advertising and help with their design. And currently, I work at a company called PlayerWON, which is a subsidiary of a company called Simulmedia. So PlayerWON is working on advertising help for games on PC and console, and Simulmedia is a TV advertiser. So we help anyone put ads into pretty much anything. So put ads into games, put ads onto all your TV shows, movies, and such. So uh, yeah,
Hmm.
wide variety
Wow.
of stuff. I kind of just take whatever is in front of me, and then I
Yeah. Yeah, that's let me put it that that's very juicy, coming from different perspective, from being sound engineer, testing, quality testing, and way into monetization. That's really juicy for me. So I'm curious, what kind of because looking at how you started, quality sound, how did you come into the monetization aspect of
yeah.
product?
So one of the tools when you're growing when you're starting from the bottom and you're kind of doing all of the jobs around, you kind of start seeing how all of the jobs fit in together, and they're all kind of interlaced. So when you're doing sound not just on your own. You're doing sound that it matches wherever the artists and the visuals have, and it matches the tone of the game and the writing. And you work together, even if what you're doing is very specialized. So when I worked as a producer and I would help make the games, for either console game or a PC game or what have you, I would realize, oh, what I'm doing is really trying to make sure that at that time when we made console games, what I'm doing is trying to make sure that the contract we signed with Walmart, that would say Walmart would sell X amount of units. My job is to make sure that we honored that contract. So everything I'm doing is, while making a game, what I'm doing is also making a product that gets sold to Walmart, and there's specific things that Walmart needs that other people don't need. And so you start going, oh, all of this work has this end goal of making money. And when I was working in mobile games, I worked in 2012. I helped design and produce a game that won the Match 3 Game of the Year, Atlantis Pearls of the Deep. And that one I got to help design from the scratch, work with the development team, and we didn't, since it was from scratch, we didn't know how to make money. One way was to put advertising and put in-app purchases. So I did a lot of research on the psychology behind that, what makes someone want to watch an ad and not immediately turn it off your game and say, I'm never playing this again. What makes someone wants to make a purchase of $10 plus on whatever your games are. So I got really into that, and the intersection of how making a creative game goes with the fact that you need to make money off the game. And I read a lot of books and listened to a lot of podcasts. And so when Disney contacted me for an opportunity to work there, I was one of the few people they could talk to that said, oh, I'm very comfortable with the creative side and designing things and putting it together, but I also know the money side and what's the economy like, and how do you make sure that you actually make money from your game. So I essentially, my niche have been in all these companies that I can talk to the creative side and tell them why what they're doing makes us money, and I can talk to the money side and tell them what the constraints of creative is, that you can't just make something bad just to make money. You actually do have to make something that's good, a product. So I kind of sit on both worlds.
Amazing, amazing. That's that's really, really interesting. Having to really understand the mechanics of production of the games, understanding the act and everything. Then having to now understand. I like the part when you talked about when you had to. I think when you had to make research about psychologies of users, understand those things. It's really, really interesting to see how creatives, how we really grow in this industry. I'm not sure. Maybe you had maybe a power background in all these, but then how you really grew into some of these things is really amazing for me, and I'm really, really inspired by those things, by those journey that you've done.
Yeah, there was no plan to that. I'm a guy, when someone says, "Hey, can you do this?" I go, "Yeah, I have Google. I can look it up. I can figure out how to do it." And so none of this was planned. It was just kind of just stuff that's happened as
Wow,
I worked on
wow,
the
wow.
industry.
That's really inspiring. Let's dive in a little bit into the conversation. There was one part you mentioned about when you worked on a particular game from scratch, and you talked about
Mhm.
understanding the need to really make money. So now I'm going to be talking about
Yeah.
not only game design, right? Just generally the B2B, B2C, right?
Yeah.
So at what time should one start thinking about monetizing your product?
That's a great question. So one of the things, so as context of why I had to think about it is when I worked on a lot of my games. The games I worked on from scratch were games that were very small companies. So we didn't have a lot of money. So I was allowed to, because it's a small company, you kind of get allowed to make whatever you want. But the downside is you need to make sure you make enough money for the people who are there. You don't have an extra cent of cash. So it really forced you kind of to think about how am I going to make money while you're making this fun product. And I say that to go from the very beginning, the decisions you are making when you're making any product is the decisions you're making on what is your monetization. So I have kind of a thing I tell people that the on your product, the form and function tells you what that monetization is. You don't make a product and then monetize it afterwards. So there, put for example, I'm making a game and it is a story based game and it has a complete beginning, middle, and end. And it feels very satisfying when you finish the game. If I make that whole game, I can't at the end go, I'm going to put I'm going to sell in-app
Hmm.
purchases inside of it. And the reason why is there are behavioral economic psychology tools that you can use to make someone have an in-app purchase make sense. Those tools don't make sense in the creative context of a complete game because those tools say, hey, as you're playing this game for maybe years to come, here are things that help your experience. But if it's a game that has a beginning, middle, and end, you're not going to be playing it for years to come. You're going to play it once and then you may replay it because it's like a fun story, but you're not really going to be able to do that. So you just, because you may decide to make a story based game, you just took multiple like types of monetization away. You can't have a subscription for a story based game. You can't put in-app purchases in a story based game. You might be able to put advertising in it. So then we can discuss, well, if you're putting advertising into it, where is the advertising going? Do you want to put it on your screen somewhere where it's like a banner that kind of appears? That maybe, but if you have a story that's very art based, then it doesn't make any sense because it'll ruin the art. Do you have a story that has natural breaks in it? So you do something, and now at the end of the story beat, there's kind of a break, and you don't really know what to do. Well, then you can probably put a commercial there. So if your story has the breaks, then you can do that. And so as I'm looking through the game, and I'm looking at how we creatively made it, I'm also looking at, okay, what tools do we have left to make money off of this?
Hmm.
And you really should be, I prefer to think of it through the whole process, because when at the end you kind of took tools away, and when you look back and you're like, oh, because I did it this way, I can no longer do this preferred method I wanted to do. So I try to keep these things in mind from the beginning, like not only what story am I telling, what is the creative process that I'm going through, but also how do I plan to make money, and then how am I modifying how I plan to make money, or how am I modifying the story so that they work together? Because it only makes sense. It only will be popular and successful if they're seamlessly married together.
Yeah, yeah, make a lot of sense. From what you said, it's really make a lot of sense. You have to start thinking from the beginning, and also you talked about that the form and the function of your product. Let me put it that way, or your game determine the type of monetization you sort of implement into it. So that takes me to the next question. Talk us through some innovative monetization strategies or model that you've come across that you've implemented. You talked about ads, you talk about, subscription. Talk us through some of these strategies, some of these models, like.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's actually, to take a step back to your question. One thing people, when they're making any product, games, entertainment product, or just a B2B product, any
Yeah.
B2C project, is there's a variety of ways to make money. I think there's 12 different business models that one can pursue. That's there. And a lot of things, times what people do is they assume all products need to have one of those 12, and they don't think
Hmm.
outside the box. So in mobile games, since I've been there for about 12 years, I guess, in mobile games, you saw the evolution of how people started to go past what their preconceived notions were, and they were really exploring what their product was, what made it different, and then how you can make money. So, as an example, when mobile games first started, all of the games were complete games that you purchased off the Apple App Store, and they were probably like $5, 4.99. A couple people would do a 99 cents, and 99 cents was the most popular. That's what Angry Birds was 99 cents. Easily became the most popular. So everyone was like, "Oh, I guess to make money on games and on the phone, it has to be 99 cents." Until someone realized, I can give this away for free and then monetize it inside the game. So if you thought a lot of people downloaded Angry Birds, wait until they download Candy Crush because it's free. And so suddenly everyone realized Candy Crush was the best absolute model. You can make a game, and then you can get people to purchase little things because they got upset that they lost. And then some people realized actually a lot of people don't like purchasing things when they lose. They actually like purchasing things that makes their game better. So then you have like a Clash Royale where you can buy things to get new characters and get new segments on. And then other people were like, you know what? I don't really like having to make my game this way. What if I get a subscription? So you have a game that maybe for 3 months you can buy a battle pass, and then it'll pay for having more fun in your game for 3 months. So then people start experimenting with this subscription model. At the same time, there was the advertising model. People start off with all ads are going to be banner ads. So there's just a little part of your screen that will always have ads that will flip back and forth. And then people realize that's a really bad experience in general. So then they started having full screen ads. I just filled your screen at different points. And when you're doing that, people stop playing your game. So then they figured out where's the best places. So it's less likely people still leave your game, but it's less likely for people to leave your game. And they realized it was in breaks. Right after you finish playing a little game segment, you can put a commercial break in. So then that became really cool. Then rewarded ads, which is what I specialized in, which is what if I get someone to press a button and I will give them a reward just for watching an ad? Well, people like that. And I know for a fact people do like it. They love watching ads. The only time you're ever going to get someone to complain that the ads don't work is when you give them a reward at the end. And they're like, oh, great, I get to watch an ad for rewards. And so that became a big model. But then what reward am I giving away? How am I balancing that with my game? These are all become really cool, exciting questions. But they don't happen if everyone just thinks you sell games by charging a set amount at the beginning. They happen because people realize you can explore a bit more. You can do other things that aren't there. So I get excited when people do that. In my current position in the non-gaming section, where we're just talking about what our product does, of hey, we're going to make sure that people can put small companies can put ads in TV. We realized our product is not one thing. Yes, we can help people put ads in a TV, but that has a lot of different parts to it that can have different business models put into it. What ads do you put in? That like, what does your creative look like? That's a service. So we can charge a different business model than, hey, what is your data that you get, and how can you use your data to make ads better? That's a different business model. Is there a free way to do it so I can get my ads playing in TV real easily, but maybe it doesn't give you all the features that you want, and so then you'll charge for extra features? That's a different business model, but it's the same product essentially. We're putting ads in your games, but all these different elements can be all monetized differently only if we stop and think we have different ways of being able to do it. So I didn't give you a specific example, but that's how I like to think of it, is just kind of take a step back and be like, the world is our oyster and you can do anything. How would I charge money for this? And it's usually it's a real fun exercise. And you see how small changes can make you money in different ways.
Yeah, I really like how you sort of answer that. Like when you talked about thinking outside the box, and not restricting yourself to those models or strategies out there, but then finding the best way to incorporate some of those strategies, I really enjoy how you mentioned those, even though you didn't actually say, okay, this. But then when I was putting down those modules that you mentioned, right here in my note, I have like five, so it make a lot of sense. Absolutely. So let's talk about maybe a particular one that you are so passionate about. I know you talked about the reward model. Like, so how do you implement that? Like, what are the factors you put in when you want to, what are things you should start considering before you even, set a
Yeah.
strategy?
So what I like about the rewarded video model that I've taken a lot of time into is that it's incredibly difficult and hard, and I like incredibly difficult and hard things. And just in general, it's more interesting. So what I think about one is what is the concept of value? So what to you what can I do to make you find an object valuable, and how is that different than someone else and how they find something valuable? So there's a lot of different thinkings and thought to it, but there's a lot of psychology that goes into it. One is my perceived value. Can I imagine myself using something, and that it's going to be super useful? How fast can I do it? Like, people like to be able to do something really quickly. They don't like the idea of a long term goal. So how can I present it so that you can use it immediately? Just visuals. What's the easiest way to see something? Like, if I make a big red button, that's great. You're going to think you're not supposed to press that button because red means bad. And you have negative connotation. So actually, the button should be maybe green or orange because those don't have the negative connotation. So you have to think about that. When you give someone money, coins, people don't like that as much as when you give them a mystery box. That's just basic psychology. Because if you give someone coins, it's either immediately useful to them or it's not. And if it's not useful to them, they'll hold it and it's not really meaningful. So I like to tell people when they try to give someone just coins or currency, imagine for your birthday someone handed you 20 bucks. While useful, you would not have a strong emotional reaction to it. You'd be like, oh, thanks, 20 bucks. And you'd move on. But imagine someone for your birthday, they're like, hey, here's a box. And more than likely, you're going to get $5 from it, but there's a chance you're going to get $1,000 from it. Now you're going to be like, that's even better. And even more is if it's not even money. If it's like, hey, you want a new car? Great. Here's a box that might have keys to a new car. You're going to be like, if I got that keys to a new car, like my favorite car, boom, I'm going to be super excited. I'm going to be more excited than if you handed me money because I love cars so much. So these are all the kind of things I think about on there. So you have to be like expert designer. You have to be expert in psychology. You have to be an expert in economy because, by the way, all games are just mini country economies. So they all have micro and macroeconomic factors that go into it. So you have to know, like, how does that balance and have a slight inflation so that your money has value, because deflating value is always bad in an economy. But how do you have slight inflation and not too much for inflation where things don't seem valuable, which is kind of the discussions that people have about, regular economies. And so it's all a variety of different things that you kind of think about while you're doing it. And also, you're supposed to be making a game at the same time. So it's all at the same time you're making a fun
Wow,
game.
wow, really interesting. Really interesting. So, what are common problems that you face or that product team sort of face when it comes to monetization?
So as I say before, the most common problem we have in monetization is when you don't match the value of your product to what you're trying to charge. That is the most common problem I see in games or just in general for all businesses, where you think that certain things that you're giving someone has more value or less that value than what they actually have. So, for example, like, I'm going to go again games because I know games the best. Sometimes you'll have a currency that is incredibly rare in the game, and it's like diamonds. And so you'll have some guy who's a money person who will be like, I'm telling you that the way I designed it, every diamond is worth $20. And so you're like, I'm not going to give out diamonds because every diamond is worth $20. However, that diamond can only be used to buy this really, really rare shirt that you put on your character. And guess what? Your users hate that shirt. They just like absolutely despise it. No one really cares about it. Now, it's the kind of debate we would have all the time with them. Is that diamond worth $20? The answer is no, because no one wants it. So it's no longer worth $20. It's worth whatever the market will have for it. So you already are like, okay, this is a problem. You're not valuing correctly because you don't know what the user actually wants. You're trying to force. Another thing I see is you try to force business models that doesn't work with what your system is. So, for example, if you have a game that you want to charge subscription for, but the game has nothing, is only a competitive game where you play against someone and it's purely competitive, and there's no advantage you can give someone, and there's really not that much stuff that you can customize your character for, what is this subscription giving you? It's not really giving you much. So why are you trying to give someone a subscription? There's no value there. You have to think of it something else to charge, maybe new characters, or maybe you just charge one upfront price. You have to kind of think through that. But that's always the most common problem, is people don't put a lot of thought into monetization. They do it at the very last second. They pick the wrong one, and it doesn't match what their product does and what the product's values are. And then they spend a lot of time in aggravation trying to like force this model onto something that should never have had that business model.
I like how you said that you have to match the value of whatsoever you're charging, like match the value to what you are charging. I think that's kind of the foundation of the whole thing. So once the value, the
Yeah.
perceived value of what you are offering to your customers doesn't match how much you are charging, definitely they're gonna shy away.
And I would like to, yeah, I would like to,
Yeah,
just to break in. Sorry, but I think you said something that I didn't press enough. What is that
yeah,
perceived value? That word perceived is
mm,
very important, because it's not just about what is the value that you've assigned to it, what is the value of the amount of money you paid for it. Perceived value is what is the emotions that your end user, your client, your customer has associated with your product. So when you're trying to fix the perceived value, when you're trying to make it higher, you're trying to improve it, it's not necessarily I'm going to throw more money at it, because that's not the perceived value. It could just be as simple as the colors are incorrect. It could just be as simple as the story you tell around that value isn't good enough, so people aren't perceiving it high
mm,
enough. There's a variety of different things you can do to improve perceived value, and a lot of people get stuck on the idea that this is equal to this, when really it's we're all humans and we're all different and we all have different psychologies. So you have a lot more tools in your toolbox on improving a perceived value of something.
yeah. I was,
But I just wanted to jump in because you mentioned perceived value. Like
yeah.
that's a very important concept. It's not actual value; it's perceived value.
I was going to go into that, right? Because that's kind of the bread and butter of monetization. I play FIFA, right? And normally I've paid for subscription. I've paid like two, three different subscription before I could even play the game, right? I was like, I'm not gonna pay for anything. I just want to play game, have fun. But then when I started playing, I don't know when I had to just bring the money out of my purse to pay for some coins, because they bring this competitiveness into the game. And at that point, the perceived value of those coins for me was nothing, because I was getting beaten like every day when I come to play. And a
Yeah,
lot of people have these teams that are like meta teams. You have players that have superpowers that it just they can dribble through from their goal post to your goal
yeah,
post and score you. So, all this competitiveness really made me lower the barrier for me to even make a purchase for those coins. So I think if any team can understand that they don't have to force those things on your user, and
absolutely.
you understand that, okay, this is you really understand what is valuable to your user, and you're able to make that perceived value the way they want it. I think monetization is really going to be easy for you as a team. So I wanted to ask this question. I know you touched it a little bit, but then I don't know if you can just go full into it. That how can you increase a perceived value of a product or of a game?
Yeah, that's it's also, I'm also going to go into why I like it, because it's difficult. Every product and that you look at is a beautiful, special, individual bird, that all have their own different ways of doing it, which makes it fun. But they're in general so I can't give a specific, because it's all different games have different values.
Definitely.
But there's a couple of things I think of. One is what is the story that is being told up to the point of where you're trying to do a conversion of some sort. You want someone to hand money, you want someone to like something. What are you doing to make it look very valuable? Usually you can improve that. It's either through your text, hey, I'm not selling this correctly, and it's a marketing text thing. Color is, as I mentioned before, is usually a really big thing that people don't think about. You need to have eye-catching colors, but also eye-catching colors that are telling the story that you want. Another, just the number value is also important. Like, I think everyone's always heard of the 0.99 because the human brain is dumb with numbers. So 199 seems a lot smaller than $2. So a lot of times people will do 199, which which because our brains are dumb, we go one and we're just like smaller than two, and so our brain does that. So maybe were you not doing the 99 and you need someone to make it smaller, just maybe change the numbers a little bit. But there's also other ways that you can play with numbers that people don't think about. What if you want your something to seem really valuable? If you want to seem really valuable, don't give it a .99. In fact, like, you want it to be a full, big, nice number, because you want people to think it's valuable. Like, if you're selling diamonds, don't make it 99. Like, make it a huge number that has that someone's going to be like, oh wow, this must be super great because it's really expensive.
Hmm.
If what do you want someone to? Are you trying to tell the story to someone? I don't want to charge you, but this is legitimately the only way I can make money. Make this sense random numbers, like a 6-7. So if you charge someone $12.67, they're going to, outside of context, go, that must be the lowest they can charge me because it's a random cent number. So obviously they don't want to charge me this, but this is the lowest they can charge me, and they did the math on it. You don't have to do math. You can just put random numbers there, but someone will think you did math, and that is the lowest amount you could charge them because you have cent remainders. So there's a lot of cool little things you can do there. And then also, when you give someone something, how that first impression after you make a purchase is incredibly important. To your FIFA example, I make a purchase in FIFA, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm doing really great. I got like this new card, and now I got this new Ford I'm going to use. I'm super excited. I go into my match, I get killed 13-0, and I go, that was a dumb purchase. Like, that was the worst purchase I could have possibly made. Like, everything was terrible. Like, why did I even buy this? But if you had made that purchase and you had won 6-7 in a row, you would be like, that was a great purchase. Boom, I was losing, and then now suddenly I'm winning. So how do
Yeah.
you make sure that purchase is a good experience after this as well, and not just before they purchase?
Amazing, amazing. I like.
Anyway, there was a couple ones off the top of my head of different things you can do when you're examining.
Yeah, sure, sure. I like those contexts you gave. Good story, good visuals, make the numbers smaller. Amazing, amazing examples out there. So let's talk about. I don't know which one to come first. Should we talk about success stories or failure stories? Okay, let's talk about failure first. Like, tell us a scenario where monetization has gone wrong, and how do you rectify it, or how did you kind of find a way around it to make it bump again?
Yeah, that's I mean, there's more failure examples than success
Yeah.
examples, so that's always really easy to do. And so I actually have a real funny failure example. I maybe not to everyone I worked with, but when I was at Scopely, I worked on a game where I flubbed how much of an economy to give someone. So it was you. It was just this is like this ad thing where you can go, you can download another game, and if you did that, we would give you inside our game some hard currency. So I wanted to do a sale where you get a little bit of extra hard currency during, I think it was Thanksgiving weekend. So you get a little extra. Um, I misplaced a decimal. So instead of giving someone, let's just say 10 of something, I gave them 100 of something. And so I ruined an economy because like everyone was supposed to have earned and paid money to buy this, but now for free you can get way more real fast just by downloading and playing some games. So like as soon as the players started going, wait, you can make a lot of money inside the game doing this, then everyone did this.
Wow.
And then unfortunately, everyone now has a lot of currency, which means all of the plans we had
Hmm.
afterwards of please use this currency to like buy this new thing. Now everyone can buy it because everyone has extra currency and no one's going to use any money, which means we're not going to make any money. It was horrible. It was
Hmm.
terrible. It's a bad thing. The funny part to it Not the fact that I messed up and I had to come in on Thanksgiving weekend and fix it and I got yelled at. The funny part to it is before this sale, everyone was convinced no one wanted to do this advertising thing because they're like, why would anyone want to go in, download a game, a separate game to make money inside your own game? That doesn't make any
Hmm.
sense. Everyone was convinced of that. Afterwards, when so many people did it, and everyone was excited on Reddit, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, get free stuff! Just download some games." Blah blah
Wow.
blah. Later on, when someone was like, "No one wants to do that," we're like, "No, actually, if you give out enough of
Hmm.
value, you can get about 70% of your users to all do
Hmm.
this." So when we were having discussions of why was this not working, we now knew for a fact it was because the perceived value of what we were giving out was too low.
Was still
Because
low.
when you gave out a stupid high amount, everyone did it. So
Hmm.
you can kind of move it around, and we played with it, and we gave out a better data. So we learned a very expensive but very valuable lesson that
Yeah.
what was wrong with what our system was. We weren't giving out enough, and we learned it from giving out way too much.
Too much.
So that
Hmm.
was my funny example of it.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that. So to the second part of the question, how do you measure success when it comes to monetization?
So games are pretty straightforward way to measure success. So what you do in game, well, free to play games is a little bit different. So free to play games, the vast majority of people are not going to hand you money, which gives a lot of people a lot of concern. But that's just how life is. Like all of us are different. We all do different things.
Hmm.
Like I have a lot of more money than someone else. So I will pay for something someone else won't. Blah blah. But so a free game play the games, one thing we look at is what is that percentage of people inside the game who are going to give you
Hmm.
money. So we check that as our monetization. So depending on your game, every game's different, but you kind of check to see if it went up or down. So that's usually how you can check to see changes. You check to see how much they give when they give money. That's a very important metric. More important though, because free to play games exist because a lot of people want to play it for free. It's the reason why you made it for free. We check to see whenever we make new monetization changes, do people continue playing the game? Do people still like the game?
Hmm.
That's the most important metric we have because you can't get someone to pay you money if they've stopped playing your game.
Yeah.
You can't, like, if someone's playing your game and they're not paying you money, you might be able to convince them in the future. They stop playing your game, you'll never be able to convince them. If you have a bad experience, you're never going to be able to convince someone they have a bad to do something. So number one is we always checked: did the person have a good experience? Are they continue playing? And make sure that we're never harming the actual point of the product, which is to have fun. It's the same thing we do when we put ads into TV shows. Did people continue watching the TV show? Because the point of it is to watch the TV show. Did people continue watching the movie? Point of it is to watch a movie. Any product that you give, you raise the price of one, a B2B product, and
Yeah.
people stop paying for things. They don't, it's a subscription model, and they don't resubscribe. You kind of ruined it. So even if you had a short bump in money, then you long term you're hurting yourself. So it's always about that client, customer, gamer experience. Are they happy about what your monetization is? You never want to go past that line where people are upset. That's always the worst thing to do. So
Hmm.
those are the metrics we look at. Number one being, are you still playing? Are you still having a good time?
Yeah, amazing. So, I really like that because I was going to talk about metrics, but thank God you really touched on the metrics, which is really, really good for me. I want to be a little bit biased now. I'm a designer, so let's talk a little bit about design when it comes to game design now. So, are there specific design principles or methodology as a designer that you need to prioritize when you're designing, probably for games or for monetization? I know you've touched on colors, making the buttons, the green and the red thing, psychology. So, what are other principles?
Is doing it.
Yeah. So, what are other principal advice that for designers?
Yeah, my advice is, and this is a common problem in games and my current industry. I think a lot of people have it. Don't work in silos. Work across your organization. Understand where your context lies across everything, because even if you're not talking to other parts of the department, you are affecting other
Hmm.
parts of the department, and you need to kind of understand. It's bigger the company, the more this is an issue. So when it comes to specifically monetization, there's going to be people in your, if you're designed by yourself, there's going to be people in your company that's more focused on what the numbers are. And so make sure you're talking to them. What is their plans? How did they see the monetization? What's the things they find most important? And how can, as a designer, I make sure that what I'm doing is helping or at least not harming what their view is? Same with, there was another department I was thinking of, but it's blanked. But but yeah, when you're a designer, you gotta really put on the hats of other departments, because it all goes together. Marketing, that was it.
Yeah.
It's same as when you're a designer, you got to think of what the marketing is, because the marketing is going to take your design and your art, and they're going to slap it onto a video, or they're going to try to sell a
Hmm.
story around there. So what are you doing to make sure that you're putting it in? So I always, all of my projects I work with, I put everyone in a room,
Hmm.
and we all talk at all times, open discussion about what we're doing. And I really try to emphasize, this is not, if you think this has nothing to do with you, you're probably not thinking about your job
Hmm.
correctly. Because the end of the day, when we're working, we're all in silos. This is production, this is design, this is marketing. Clients, the customer, it's one thing. When you're playing FIFA, you're not thinking, oh, look, that's marketing. Oh, look, that's design. Oh, look, that's sound. Oh, look, that's coding. You're like, oh, look, I'm playing
Hmm.
FIFA. It's all the same thing. So when you're building stuff, you have to really think the same. So it's not just, monetization is very important, and it's the thing that people actually forget. So if you're a designer and you're breaking up, that's just plus kudos to you. But in general, I think it's just teams need to work more together and understand what the full vision is.
Hmm. I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. And I didn't even see it in that light before. I like, one of the analogy that I really relate to was how you talked about the FIFA. I could relate so well. When I'm playing the FIFA game, I never think about, oh, the sound, oh, the visuals, oh, they all work together to make the product amazing. So
Yeah,
it's always good to work collaboratively. And even when you are working on the B2B product, the marketing team, the sales, they are the one that
yeah,
will talk to the customer. So when you are working hands in hand with those, they know what the customers are talking about. I think it's just a no-brainer for you
yeah.
to have that skill of collaboration as a designer, which is absolutely great. Yeah, this has really been a very fun conversation for me, and I'm very, very sure to everybody out
Okay.
there. So bringing the conversation to a close now, and there are lightning questions, but I'm going to do a little twist to this lightning question. So,
All right.
what are the top products you've used, like that you love and you kind of just want to share out there?
My top products I love. It's always difficult. So I have a lot of Android products. So I have a Google Pixel tablet that connects to my Google Pixel watch, that connects to my Google Home, that connects to all my Google stuff together. So it's my top, just to say, a series of products, which is, they all connect together and they're all pretty seamless, which is good because historically Google actually doesn't talk to each other. So the fact they all connect is great. So that's one of my favorite products in general. What else products do I like? Oh man, that is such a good question. Yeah, other than all my variety of Android stuff, and my cooking utensils. Like I have a really cool like salt breaker that like was made by the Sir Latte, and it always works. Like it has a handle that you can pull back and forth, and it's like perfect at like getting the right amount of granular. It's like you don't realize how bad the other ones are until you use this one. You're like, oh, this one is like perfectly designed. So that's another
Hmm.
product I really enjoy. It was a good use
Wow.
of like $10. It was expensive. It's a
Hmm.
pricey grinder, but it's worth it. Changes your life for the better.
Yeah, you know what? I so much like, I
Sorry,
so much,
I can't think of other products. Those are the two at the top of my head. Like
yeah,
those are
sure.
the ones I love.
Sure. One thing I like about the way you answered that question was that you even talked about physical product. Like when I ask this question to guests, most of them talk about softwares, talk about apps and everything. But I like the perspective you brought into it. It seems you like cooking a lot.
I like
Yeah,
to see
yeah,
that. Not to rant,
yeah.
but I
That's
feel like people who are in tech everything's in their head is tech, and like the majority of your life is in physical space. So the fact that people like don't think
Ah,
about the stuff you really use, which is like your bed,
mm,
your really cool toothbrush, like those are
mm.
I have a water flosser that's really cool. Yeah. Like those are the stuff you're really using. So tech is good. It fits within there, but not all life is tech. You gotta have a balance.
I like that. I like that. So my second question would be: what are the top three games you like and you sort of want to tell people to try out there?
Yeah. Number one, Smash Brothers Ultimate on Nintendo is my favorite fighting game. It's something for people who've never played a fighting game can enjoy it because it has fun characters from Nintendo, and you can just press up two buttons and you have a good time. It also has a professional league in it that I used to be part of. And you can there's a lot of different stuff you can learn about it,
Oh,
and it's very, very intense and stuff. So it's really almost accidentally brilliant about the fact that it's incredibly approachable and fun, while also being like this real depth. Hearthstone, again, going back to I like card games. I like games that really make you think. So Hearthstone and Marvel Snap, those are two games that I really enjoy. They're card collecting games. They're both really different because one average is like 30 minutes of gameplay per session. The other one is 5 minutes, so they're very different in how they approach it. But at the end of the day, it's all about maximizing your economy and what you have and trying to come up with strategies. And I like card games in general, so those are real fun. And then I'm going to go physical space again because that is how I roll. But the Disney villains is a really good another card game, Disney villains, and it's also they have Marvel villains and Star Wars villains. It's very fun to four-player
hmm.
card game, and you get to play the villainous sides of your favorite stories. And so, as the villain, you get to right the wrongs and make sure the villain wins. So it's very fun of trying to make
Hmm.
sure you're going to poison Snow White, and so you get to play your cards trying to poison Snow
Hmm.
White. Or I'm going to definitely make sure that Jafar wins this time. So real
Wow.
fun game with a real concept. So
Yeah,
there you go. Those
that's
are
really
those,
gonna
those
be.
are three and a half.
Yeah, yeah, that's really gonna be fun, fun, fun. Like the last one you talked about, maybe I'll try because I think I might be going to maybe Disney later for in the summer. Maybe I might just try it out. Yeah, but let's see how it goes.
It's
So
super fun. Yeah, super easy to figure out. Recommend.
yeah, cool. So the last question will be: if you were not like a product manager right now in the game space, what profession would you have been?
So I went to school and college for screenwriting. So if I was not in games, I would probably be protesting right now with the WGA writers that are out there. So yeah, no. So I went to University of Southern California. Shout outs to Trojans out there. But yeah, I did screenwriting for 4 years. I help my friends with screenplays. I don't have time to actually work on them, but I'll read screenplays a lot. So and I'll help my friends, give them tips and such. People who are writers. So yeah, I'm not the world's greatest writer. I probably would have been like more practice. Like I'm really good at saying why I'm bad. Like I can really look at a script and be like, this is why it's bad, and this is why my script isn't very good. Not so much as at fixing it, but I imagine if I wasn't doing product management, I would be more focused in fixing those.
I was even thinking you would say you like cooking, or maybe you would have been a cook because.
Oh, I like eating. That's the number one thing. Yeah. So if cooking gets me to eating, but if someone just handed me food that was delicious, I'd be like just eating it all the time. So
Amazing. Yeah. Wow. I really enjoyed this conversation. And yeah, thank you so much for the time, Jamal. So if people,
absolutely.
if audience want to reach out to you, probably want to learn about more about game design, more about product managing in terms of game design or monetization, what's the best platform to reach out to you?
Oh, I should be on social media is what this answered was. I am old. I have a LinkedIn. I have an email address, and that is it, man. Wait, too old, too old for social media. So, um, LinkedIn. I don't know. Send me a postcard. Do people do still do postcards? I don't know. The yeah no yeah. Me on LinkedIn, much like you did, and I send a connection, send a message.
Cool.
Probably the best way to contact me.
Cool, amazing, Java. I really enjoyed this conversation. I believe so many people out there too also gonna enjoy it. Thank you so much for this time, and also big thank you to everyone who has taken time to listen to this episode. If you found this very valuable, please do well to subscribe to this show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, on any of your favorite podcast app. Also, you can consider giving us some sort of review and leaving some comments on the podcast. See you in the next episode.